Welcome back here to Adelante Chicago. Well, immigrants played a leading role in building this country. And according to a new report, immigrants in Illinois continue to play a crucial role in strengthening communities and fueling some of the economic growth. Here to break down the findings of a report is Steve Hubbard, senior data scientist with American Immigration Council. First of all, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
All right, so let's break this down. Let's start with sort of the portion of the population growth that we've seen in our region. How much of it can be attributed to immigrants, and what areas are seeing that growth?
So we looked at states of the Great Lakes region. That included, of course, Illinois, but Wisconsin and Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and upstate New York. And what we saw was that immigrants were important to the population growth across this region. We saw that the population grew from 2010 to 2022 by 1.4%, or nearly 900,000 people. Really, when you looked at that, the US born population was sort of stagnant. It only grew by 0.3%, but the immigrant population grew by 15%, or over 15%. So during this time period between 2010 and 2022, immigrants were important to keeping the population growing, and it accounted for nearly 80% of the population growth within the region was because of immigrants. And the reason why you want to see population growth is because it's important to the economy. It adds jobs, it adds to the workforce, and it's important for the overall community and for the economics of the region.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, eventually those people or immigrants become consumers, right, which contribute to the economic growth. I want to talk about the pros and the cons. What were, as you were putting together this report, what were some of the negatives that maybe communities may have seen from a large population boom in the immigrant sector?
Well, I don't know if we really saw much negatives, because what we're looking at here is, as you increase the population, we didn't want to see, of course, population decrease, because that, of course, can be very negative to the economy and to population growth. I would say that probably urban areas we received a lot of the population increase from immigrants. However, if you look at rural areas also increase because of immigration. In fact, if you would have looked at rural areas specifically, they would have decreased in population between 2010 and 2022. It was actually immigrants who helped keep that population stable within the rural communities.
Okay, and part of the economy is, of course, jobs. There are industries that right now are needing workers. I mean, we talk about healthcare. In some cases, we can talk about manufacturing. What sort of role has the immigrant community played in some of those job industries?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely, when we look at the Great Lakes region, places like Illinois, we see that there's been sort of revival in manufacturing jobs, and immigrants play an important role in manufacturing jobs and helping, especially those very labor-intensive jobs. We look at like meat packers. Within the region, 42.5% of meat packers within the region, and of course the meat industry is really important to this region. 42.5% of workers are immigrants. And then we look at things like more technical, like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Those fields are really important in technical manufacturing, in the tech industry. And we see that immigrants are 16.4% of the workforce in the STEM fields. And so that's also really important in creating growth.
All right. I can't let you go without talking about politics, right? Elections are coming up, and I think a lot of people would wonder what sort of impact would an immigrant community have on some of our, battleground states or swing states like Wisconsin and Michigan. Do you want to weigh in on that?
I will weigh in on that. Okay, so when we look at the region, we see that there are 2.6 million naturalized citizens who are eligible to vote. You realize that immigrants, when they come and they become naturalized, and it does take a long process to do that. It takes a very extensive process. But once they become naturalized, they are citizens of the United States and are eligible to vote. And we know in the region that 2.6 million residents are eligible to vote who are immigrants. And they are a big voting power. When we look at states like Michigan, we know that because of the last presidential election, how narrow it was as far as the voting and how small the difference was. We know that the number of naturalized citizens that are eligible to vote is 2 times the amount that was that the election results were. In Wisconsin, it's 6 times, and in Pennsylvania, it's 6 times.
All right.
So within these states, naturalized citizens have a real power to vote and are important to the voting process.
Okay, I want to get the information up on the screen if folks want to read through this report, whether they're working on politics or the economy. There it is, AmericanImmigrationCouncil.org. We appreciate your time. Please visit us again.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right.